My name is Percy Jackson.
There's so many things in Greek and in Roman and any other kind of mythology, but we're going to focus on those, that is there to love and enjoy. And that's why, like, Greek mythology and Roman mythology was part of those cultures, but they've become part of, like, the world. Like, these stories are
Yes.
now part of, like, everyone all over the world. And those versions of those stories are not the same as, like, the religious ideas that people had back then. Those are two separate
No.
things. But it is the reason why they still exist now, and people even know who they are. I don't know that people would even know about these cultures and structures as much as they did if they didn't become something that people just all over the world heard stories about in school or were adapted a bunch of times in different things. So I wanted you to have a chance to talk about that because you wanted to talk about, like,
Well,
why people love it.
it's interesting too because of the way that we talk about it, people wouldn't expect us to be lovers of Greek mythology, so to speak, just because we don't kiss the gods' asses. But for so I had William ask me recently, like, are any of the gods actually good? And I was like, at best, they're all neutral. And they're all neutral because, this was a religion. These are supposed to be forces of nature. Forces of nature can do very, very great things, but they can also lead to a lot of destruction. And so they act like forces of nature. And that's the way I would put it, is like, just like every single human, like you can weigh their good and their bad actions and, probably come up with like an answer. Like, my Egyptian mythology is crap, but like the feather that gets weighed against their heart in the afterlife, we could do that with humans, like with actual humans, and a lot of people wouldn't come up, with their heart weighing less than the feather. Let's be real here. But we like the stories and we keep going back to them because those power dynamics are something that feel very real. I mean, that's the biggest thing for people like us with trauma that happened with our parents specifically. Gods a lot of times are parental figures in a way. And so that paternalism then being a power dynamic that's very integral to the story, you get some themes out that touch on real life things without like actually making you think too hard about your trauma in a way.
Well, and one thing I did want to bring up in that vein is Becky Riordan said this to us on Threads, like responding to a video that you posted where you were talking about when you were rereading The Lightning Thief and you realized that Zeus was stalking Percy even before he really knew what was going on.
Want to feel better about your own reading comprehension? It took until last night, rereading The Lightning Thief with my son, for me to realize that during the chapter where Sally, Percy, and Grover are in Gabe's Camaro and they're running away from the Minotaur, that they're also running away from Zeus. I don't know why, I just wasn't paying attention to what the lightning is doing in that chapter, but Percy mentions that he thinks the car exploded at one point, right? And it's because lightning struck the car. It literally like blew open the roof. And I didn't realize that Zeus is the reason that they got caught by the Minotaurs. Like the Minotaur would not have caught up to them had Zeus not tried to blast them off the road at the same time. Am I the only one who didn't realize that that was what was going on? I think it's because they don't explicitly say it's Zeus that I wasn't paying attention to the lightning. Pay attention to the lightning in the first few chapters.
And the thing that she pointed out was when you're a child, your parents or adults, but parents for us, have so much power over you. It doesn't matter if they're Zeus, the Minotaur, or like your dad. They have so much more power than you do that it doesn't matter which one of them they are because they have so much more than you, and you could never possibly like compare to them. And that's basically what she said when she saw that video that you posted, that yeah, that's like the point of showing a series like this of a god like Zeus attacking this little child, and the Minotaur showing up and seemingly killing his mother right in front of him and things like that when he's a 12-year-old little kid. Those sort
Yeah.
of things happen to children all the time. And they, like, my dad might as well be Zeus. Like, Zeus and
Hmm.
Kronos actually remind me of him. And so he might as well have been somebody like that because he had total and complete control over every aspect of my life. Like,
Hmm.
it didn't matter if he was actually a god because it felt like he was, and it still feels like that. He still
Yeah.
affects so much of my life, even when he's long gone. It's just people who are like that, especially as horrible as he was, they have such a long lasting effect on your life in the way that the gods do. And so
Hmm.
when you hear these stories about like Zeus being everything that Zeus does makes sense to me. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised by anything that he does or the things that Kronos does. Like, one of the things I thought was funny when we were reading the first 5 books is that, like, we would be reading a chapter of Luke doing something or Kronos doing something. And I'm like, oh, they're going to do this next. And then, like, the next episode, I would be like, they did the thing that I said they were going to do because I'm like, that would just be what my dad would do. And
Yeah.
so it's like the stories overall, the story I think about the gods and like how people feel about them is the reason I think why the pendulum is kind of like shifted from look how amazing the Greek gods are. Aren't they so cool and so powerful? And look all the about all these wild things that they can do. Like that was more the way that people talked about the gods, especially when I was growing up still. But now it's moved to people questioning the gods.
Your family is a mess. They don't support you because they love you. They obey because they're afraid. Ares, your son, he turned on you the moment someone stronger showed up. Do you really think he'll be the last? How afraid of you do you think they'll be when your dad shows up looking to put you back in your place?
And people re-looking at like every person that you thought was like a villain because you thought they were a villain because of what the gods thought of them. That has like naturally happened because that is what society in general has been doing, especially millennials. We're like the
Hmm.
entire generation of making people actually think about everything that they put us through. And so
Yeah.
this generation out of everybody is going to use Greek mythology that way. And it's not like super shocking to me that there are people like pushing back and wanting to go back to like how it used to be because there are people right now trying to like push the whole like trad wife idea, for example, and trying to push people back to how things used to be too. But
Hmm.
it's just that is why people think of the gods that way now because they're this great representation of whatever the problem is in the society at the time. And depending on what
Yeah.
the society is going through at the time, they represent something different. And because they're, even though they represent certain things in like nature and stuff, their stories are vague enough that you can kind of make it work for whatever you're going through. Like no
Hmm.
matter what time in history you're in. And so
Yeah.
right now it's focusing on them being abusive parents and
Hmm.
or just abusive people that are using the power they have to hurt people because that's what we're doing. There's
Yeah.
billionaires that are literally burning the planet apart. And so that's what people use these stories for. Maybe, hopefully, one day we won't have to do that. And people can tell stories that make us like the gods again. But
Yeah.
right now, these are the stories that we need. And isn't it like great that there's Greek mythology stories like this that we can always go back to help people
Hmm.
make sense of things that are hard to understand instead of being like, no, like, I think that's great.
Like, to kind of wrap up my thoughts on the positivity of like Greek mythology and where I think we're headed with it is like, at least on our comfortable little side of the internet, the people that like we know get what we're trying to do,
Mhm.
I do think that we are due for a resurgence of people talking about like certain stories again. I think that the Odyssey might bring up more Trojan War stuff again.
Mhm.
And with Trojan War stuff, especially right now, I would love for people to take a greater look at some of the Trojan women and their stories of what happens to them after the Trojan War, because that's going to be like just a human thing that we could all relate to after, I mean, the next 3 years we still have here. And like also global events, hello. But I do think that like the way that we look at mythology changing to be more about these power dynamics, especially considering some of the power dynamics being thrown about in our everyday society right now, I do think that there is room for more positivity in this space. That there's room for more people to do what we're doing and look at the power imbalances as if, you know, like you're not going to get zapped out of the sky if you say something bad about Zeus or something like that, you know? That you can look at someone like Danae, Perseus's mom, who literally like got sexually assaulted with a shower of gold, became pregnant, and then that was dangerous to her. Like, hello, you know, like you could look at those situations and not just like laugh at the ridiculous of what does it mean that she got a golden shower, to, you know, like more about this was a young girl who was literally imprisoned because of a prophecy, and then she gets pregnant anyway because Zeus just can't fucking help himself. What the hell?